On the following day, when you come back to pull up your traps, you want to aim to be approximately 24 hours later and come again at low tide so that you can reach the traps by foot. Before you pull up your trap, make sure that you've recorded the date and the time and that you have a GPS location before you move it. Ensure that the trap stays in the water so that if you have fish, they're not being stressed out unnecessarily. And then when you're ready to open up the trap, you should have a bucket ready with some water in it to deposit any catches into. After you have your buckets prepared with the water in them, you can go ahead and untie your traps and deposit any species that you've caught into the buckets. With the large prawn traps, you may need to grab some of the species by hand if there's a lot in there, as it's difficult to dump into the buckets at times. One person could be emptying the bait cups back into the water and cleaning the gear. This is just a preliminary rinse in the salt water, and you pick off any vegetation, and then when you get back, you would rinse them with fresh water as well. After you've emptied the bycatch into your first bucket, you start with the fish, identify and count them and sort them into the second bucket, and then release them as soon as possible. After that, you can move on to the other species that may include starfish, shrimp, snails, or crabs. After you finish with the first trap, you can go ahead and grab the second trap. Just make sure that you're grabbing the right trap number and that you're alternating between the prawn and the minnow. Before you open the minnow trap, I often find it's helpful to stack it on one end and tap it to make sure that any small critters in it fall to one side. Remove the bait cup, ensuring that there's no critters on it. And then empty the contents into your sorting bucket. After you've counted and identified all of your fish and released them, you can start on the crabs. For the crabs, I generally pick one species and one sex to start with before moving on to the rest. So the first one I've pulled out is a shore crab. He has this lighthouse shape underneath, which means it is a male. In order to measure a crab, you're looking for the widest spine. So on our green crab, it'll be the 5th spine. Dungeness have 10 spines, and then these shore crabs have 3 spines. So you're just finding whatever the widest point is of their shell. In order to read the calipers, you're going to look at where this 0 lines up. So for this one, we're looking at 10, 15, 16, approximately 17 millimeters. After you finish measuring this crab, you're going to place him into the second bucket for the ones that have been done, and then begin on the next male. After I finish measuring, I'll let my partner know the size of the crab and she will record it. If you end up catching a hermit crab, they do not need to be measured or sexed, you'll just have a total count. Something else to make note of when you're doing your data collection is if there are any mortalities, those should be recorded on your sheet. If you're unsure of what species you have caught, we have provided a general guide of some of the common crabs, fish, and others. You can also take a photo and identify it later when you get back to the office. When you get back from the field, you'll want to type up your paper data into an Excel sheet that is provided to you. If you have an ArcGIS account, you can also use an iPad or an iPhone instead. The survey has been created by CRS and is available to any group that would like to use it. The survey records the same information as the paper sheets, asking for the date and time of the species, and it drops the GPS location for you automatically.